Hello out there, and welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. Got an interesting set of articles lined up here for us tonight. Sitting in the hot seat with me, my co-pilot, the great wizard of historical knowledge himself, Mr. Eric Smith. How are you tonight, Eric?
Very energized, sir.
Energized, ready to rock and roll?
Set to go.
Yeah.
Off.
All levels at optimum
efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man.
Everything humming along.
How does one get there?
Well, I had some absinthe earlier.
Yeah.
There's part of it, I suppose.
Absinthe. That's some old school shit, right? Absinthe.
Yeah, I suppose so. Like the Renaissance period was when it was pretty famous.
And that was like that's an alcoholic drink,
Mm-hmm.
but it was banned in the U.S. for a period of time or something weird like that, right?
Like 96 years or something like that.
That's
Because it
bizarre.
had worm's wood in it.
So what's the deal with wormswood?
Well, it's supposed to be a hallucinogen. It's what Van Gogh supposedly took too much of that made him cut his ear off.
Okay.
So, it had like a bad reputation. They wouldn't let it in America for a while.
Is it a hallucinogen?
Yeah, I believe that it is. But the alcohol content of absinthe is such that you'd get smashed on it before you'd ever hallucinate off of the amount of wormswood that's in it.
Absinthe is a drink that it definitely seems like a drink that someone that is working on their degrees in history would drink, man. Are you going to wear corduroy jackets with the patches on the elbows and shit too?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
You can pull that shit off too, man.
Sure.
You definitely can.
Good. Yeah. No, I mean, it tastes like a black jelly bean.
I know. It's actually better because I can't stand black licorice, that flavor. I can't. What do they call that? Anise?
Yeah.
Anus?
No.
I can't. Oh, my
Anus.
God. So Sambuca, which is a big Italian drink,
Mm-hmm.
man, there was a point in time that I was married into an Italian family, and as part of like the men's get-together, you had to get together and do shots of Sambuca.
Wow.
And I would rather lick a muffler than drink Sambuca, man. I mean, I just cannot take that black licorice taste. I hate it. And clove and all of that. Like, I can't stand that.
I remember having a few around you. I think there's clove in it too. I remember having a few around you and you weren't real impressed with the smell. It was always like a 15-foot barrier.
Well, no, I actually tried it because of you. You were the first person I ever tried it with, and it does not taste like it smells, I'll say that, necessarily.
Yeah, it's got a lot of flavor to it.
But man, it messes you up quick.
It does. It's got like 17% alcohol by volume.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, there are vodkas and stuff that are a lot more than that. It definitely has an effervescence to the way it intoxicates you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's different. It's kind of like, how tequila is different than whiskey and beer, they're all... I feel like it kind of has its own place.
It's very heady.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I can see why I don't know if it ever convinced me to cut my freaking ear off or anything.
I don't think it would me either. But they didn't know how to make it at the place I went to. I had to show them, and I was telling them about putting the sugar cube on the spoon, right? I kept saying slot it spoon, and they just had this normal spoon turned upside down, and I couldn't even figure out what she was thinking to do with the sugar cube, And
well, every bar has that.
Yeah, but
thing
she
put
seen
the
it at the
ice
last
on.
minute and grabbed it. She says, "You mean this?" I'm like, "Yes, that
thing."
Yeah, she was so confused. She's really nice though, and she, but she said she never made one before.
Hey, we forgot to do the shout outs.
Well, I hadn't forgot. I was gonna work it in.
Oh, are you?
But let's do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, I wanted to have a shout out to my coworker, Cassie. Great to work with. She doesn't mind how many questions that I ask, and I ask her all kinds of questions all the time. So she listens to the show every so often. So wanted to say hi to her, and wanted to say hi, shout out to Annette, because she's been listening to the shows as well. And
well, she's a rabid fan, man. She's out there commenting on stuff like crazy,
That's
sharing
great.
links. I think she even shared the show a couple places too, if
Cool.
I'm not mistaken. So
Fantastic.
I love it when people share the show, man, because that helps a ton when they do that.
Yeah, definitely. She seems to have a lot of herbs that she grows and
so
flowers. And
she's very
stuff.
earthy, huh?
I believe so.
To introduce her to some of our more earthy previous guests.
Yeah. Pharmacutus?
Pharmacute.
Pharmacute.
Yeah, you're talking about Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking of pharmacutes, no, I'm just kidding, Susan. Don't get mad at me. I'm not going to make this connection. I was going to say, speaking of pharmacutes, you want to know how to join the Illuminati? Because that's my first article. Susan's like, she's at home listening to go, what the fuck?
What are they talking? How does, you mean to drug them or something so you can join or something?
No, I was just fucking around. Yeah, Jeff's like, he's got the phone in his hand. Put the phone down, Jeff.
Hey, dude, who's calling your phone right now?
So my first article tonight comes from Big Think. It's how to join the Illuminati and other secret societies.
Ooh.
I know, right?
It's a secret. I didn't even know what they were.
Like, how do you get in, man? Is there like a special, what is it? How do you get in?
There's a card game called Illuminati by Steve Jackson.
No, man, but those bitches get like they get put up in the penthouse and, it's like, be our shill. And it's like, where do these deals come from? Not that I'm looking for this kind of deal.
But we would like to know if anyone else knows.
I'm keeping my options open. Is there a way to join an infamous secret society like the Illuminati or Skull and Bones or even Disney's super club within Disneyland? There's a super secret supper club within Disneyland. Say that fucking 10 times fast,
Nope.
huh? We all know Beyonce and Jay-Z are most likely in the Illuminati and George Bush is in Skull and Bones. Does that mean you have to be amazingly successful or come from blue blood to join a secret organization that rules the world through a new world order?
Probably.
Yeah, it would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be what we see happening.
I mean, these offers just aren't falling all over themselves out there.
No, I think the only people I do know in secret societies either have money or blue blood or both. It's really synonymous in a lot of cases.
Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. The actual Illuminati was a secret society founded in 1776 in Bavaria, which is now in Germany. That organization upheld the ideals of the Enlightenment, fighting superstition, abuse of state power, and undue religious influence on the life of the public.
That sounds very noble.
Yeah, okay. Well, damn these people.
I want to be a Jedi Knight like my father.
Do not make fun of the Illuminati. Oh, what the fuck? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm scared now.
That organization, okay, we already read that part.
See, you're scared too.
I'm freaking out. The group was outlawed by the Bavarian ruler Charles Theodore, who did so at the urging of the Roman Catholic Church, which understandably did not agree with the Illuminati teachings.
You can't have spiritual.
Wait a minute.
You have our dogma.
You're crowding in on our space here.
Yeah.
Johann Wolfgang, check this name out. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Von Goethe?
I'm guessing that's
Von
Go. I bet
Von
the
Go?
is silent. The literary titan who penned Faust. See, I probably should know that.
Ah, Faust. Yeah.
Was
Sold-
Count. Huh? What's that?
I was just sold his soul to Mephistopheles. Faust did.
Yeah, that's why they call it a Faustian tale type. Yep. Oh, fucking look at us knowing shit here.
Yeah.
Was counted among the Illuminati members, as were other prominent citizens. At its apex, the organization had up to 2,500 members. In its reach ultimately dwindled, and various government edicts were successful in disbanding the organization by 1787. It didn't last very long.
And they don't seem like they were very secret.
Yeah, right? There's all this
Like,
information.
Yeah, all these people against them and passing laws for them and stuff. Like, how are you passing laws on a secret
didn't work out.
organization?
Didn't work out, did it?
No, it didn't.
There was a theory published in 1797 and 1798, well, which is it? In Augustine Birrell's memoirs illustrating the history of Jacobinism and John Robinson's Proof of a Conspiracy, that the Illuminati have survived and, in fact, managed to influence world events in an audacious international conspiracy. Ooh.
Audacious.
Does that tickle you in fun spots?
I don't know. Audacious sounds like a word that lots of people will see.
Again,
just sounds
not much with the secrety shit here, folks, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's true, it's hard to judge, especially if you're not a member of the Illuminati. But there have been some modern organizations that claim their heritage back to the original Bavarian group. Chances are these groups are not the real Illuminati either, as ones like this one just try to sell you stuff.
It's like Baskin and
You can be in the
Robbins.
Illuminati, but you got to buy this cassette tape series.
Did you know that Baskin and Robbins was founded on Illuminati principles dating back from the Bulgarian ice cream phase of our corporation? What?
What am I buying a franchise?
Yeah,
What's happening to me?
So I'm in.
I mean, when do I get the secret handshake? They also have an exciting commercial that challenges you to participate in the continuing survival of the human species. Oh, there's an Illuminati TV, dude. Like it's a YouTube channel. Should that surprise us? So to summarize, no, you probably cannot join the Illuminati because they no longer exist. Or do they? Another secret organization you might have heard about is the Skull and Bones. See, I think you got to be at Harvard to get into that organization. No, I'm serious. I think that's where.
No, I'm laughing because of all the stuff that went
I'm sorry,
down.
not Harvard, Yale. It's not Harvard, it's Yale. Bush went to Yale. He didn't go.
About all the people who got in trouble for paying for their kids to get in and pass tests and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, so when we're talking about blue blood and money being synonymous, and you're like, man, you got to be in the Yale. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that they paid for that too. It's like it's all they paid to get in.
I can't remember who I heard this from recently, but you know what's interesting about that shit that went down and that has gone down where people have, manipulated those type of systems to get their kids into college, influential people or people with money, is that the kids do okay. You follow what I'm saying? It's not that I get, okay, putting the ethics of cheating your way in and how that works out with, fairness. I get all of that. I'm not arguing that. What I'm saying is that for these universities and stuff to be so fucking elitist, you would think someone that circumvents the system to get in would struggle because it's so elitist. And it turns out that they don't really, they do pretty well.
Yeah.
So what are you really getting then? That's my question, is like, what's the value of that super expensive education over maybe a lesser name? It's just you're buying
the clout.
You're buying the clout. Yeah. It's a weird sort of intellectual elitism, isn't it? It's bizarre.
Buying to get into Yale, buying to get into the Skull and Crossbones.
Yeah, wherever.
There's probably like a level of all the people in Yale, and only the top of those people with the money and the blue blood are the ones that's going to get into that anyway.
Yep. That's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's funny that to me that's transparent, though. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, you're just like any other organization like this.
The same thing I would do if I had money.
Find silly, interesting, mythical shit to spend it on.
No, I mean just go to Yale and get into the Skull and Crossbones or whatever, and be a politician, run some stuff.
Yeah.
Have a good pension. My point is, I guess I probably wouldn't run things much differently had I had that same money in that same position, and I was that age and stuff. I think, these
there's all kinds of crazy shit that comes from the rumors of these. Well, then there's that goofy thing that actually exists, right? Where all those people, what do they call that? That thing Alex Jones is always freaking the fuck out about.
The owl?
Yeah, what is that?
I don't know.
I can't remember it either.
The great owl or something like that.
Bilderberg. It's called Bilderberg.
Is that what it is?
That's the conspiracy theory.
I may never have known that, actually.
Yeah. But it's not even. That's what's funny is that's another one of them weird conspiracy theories that turned out to actually be true. It's all very secretive, and they hide what they discuss, and all these world leaders show up, and they've got like videos of these ceremonies, these weird, like camp ceremonies they do.
Pagan ceremony.
Yeah, fucking wild, man. I mean, who's not into that, right? I mean, come on. Well, I mean, why do I have to do this to get an economic policy? Wait, what's happening here?
So what does it say about joining?
I don't know. This says, is it taking in new members? Well, it probably is, but you have to go to Yale to join.
Well,
That's what we were basically saying. So we just kind of went off on a tangent. Blah, 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 blah. Got to go to Yale. So I wasn't going to go much further with that. Here's a fun one that, of course, fits the format of our show fantastically. This one comes from Insider. Dr. Marijuana Pepsi, who just received her PhD, said she won't change her name to make other people happy.
Look, she's making me happy not changing her name, first of all.
This is a for real thing. Her name is Marijuana Pepsi Van Dyke.
Good.
She just received her PhD in higher education leadership.
I'm sure she'll get lots of kindergarten jobs.
With a dissertation on teacher behaviors and student perceptions of unusual names. Right? So this is a chick that let this thing define her in a very positive way. This is when I saw the name, I didn't know I was going to get an inspirational story here, but this is kind of cool. She told NPR that in the black community, it's fairly common to have names that are more cultural. So she interviewed students about their experiences having names others may think of as different. But while she thought her name was beautiful when she was younger, growing up around white teachers and students started to make her feel more insecure about it. One teacher even wrote her name as Mary on a certificate, but Van Dyke's mother, who loves her name, made sure the certificate was corrected. Quote, you don't want to piss off a black mama, baby. You don't. She just shared, quote, she just shared that she felt a kinship with me, and she felt like this name would take me around the world, Van Dyke said.
Look, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of the guys that make the certificate. They get the call. Yeah, you got to change Mary to marijuana. What?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It's Mary to marijuana, right?
Right.
Like it wasn't because it said marijuana. We knew it. Okay.
Van Dyke told WIFR that she decided to study how the school environment can impact students' emotional and academic outcomes if they have a distinctly black name, but it wasn't because of her own experiences. She thought of the idea when another teacher assumed her class test scores were going to be low just by looking at a list of names.
That's weird.
Well, of course. I mean, there's a bias that's going to come with that.
Well, I was immediately thinking in my head, what is a stereotypical black name? Because generally, I guess that would be an African name. Is that?
Well, yeah, that's what they're saying. African-American name, like a cultural type thing.
Okay.
So, quote, so it's not so much my name, it's the names of students that have an impact on their academic achievement just because of the implicit biases that sometimes accompany their teachers, Van Dyke said. That's a for real thing, man. There's no doubt about that. I saw that in the military constantly.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. There's no doubt that you can take and derive you definitely derive a set of cultural references from somebody's last name. Okay, you just do.
But the thing is, man, when I see African names, I think of the University of Sankore, which was like one of the great repositories of knowledge in Africa.
Well, because you're a fucking historian, bro.
But still, that's what I think, and I think of all the scholars that came out of that.
Yeah, when you take
area.
any of these cultures and you put them in the actual context of their rich history, you get a completely different appreciation for every culture on this planet. There's no doubt about that. So Van Dyke wants educators to be more accepting of names they may consider strange or unusual, and hopes her story can be part of making that happen. Quote, if you're curious about it, feel free to ask, she told NPR, perhaps not in front of the other 25 students. Don't ask who named them in a condescending manner. Hey, you little shit. Who gave you your name?
How'd you get that name? Somebody lose a bet in your family?
The educator of the year right there, man. She added that she's really proud of her name now, and she wouldn't ever change it for anyone. Quote, we can't always go through life changing things to make other people happy, she said. I had to learn that early on. Frickin' A, man. Good for her.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, that shows you that there ain't no hurdle that can't be crossed, you know.
Not even marijuana. Pepsi
Who does
hurdles.
that? Like, hey, kid, let me saddle you with this, the realities of the brutality of life from step one. Wham! You know?
I like the part where they said that as a little girl, she thought it was a beautiful name, and it was like it like gave her problems when she got older. It's interesting.
No, but you got to accept that. That's why she obviously has been so passionate about her career or her educational path choice, is because of the hardships that certainly she had to learn to get by. But through that came an amazing education and how to do those kinds, like conflict avoidance. And think about that. Right? Mm-hmm. She's a teacher now. What can she teach you? Well, probably.
She just has some experience.
There's a lot of experience packed behind that name. The fact that it has a doctor in front of it shouldn't surprise anyone, actually. Right. So here's a cool one, man. You ready? So this article comes from Nerdist.
Hey, cool.
Blade Runner 35th anniversary. Which cut should you watch? So the 35th anniversary was last month. And I know for me and you as well that movie was like a landmark for us, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was definitely one of the iconic movies in the mythology of my past and my life. I can't remember. I know I seen it at the movie theaters when it first came out, and I remember wanting to see it really bad and reading about it in Starlog magazine prior to that, which at that time, the year that was like your main source of science fiction information was Starlog magazine. There was no internet or anything, so
yeah, the internet sort of killed all of that, like fandom magazine type stuff. It all went digital very rapidly.
You can still get them on PDF though. You can get all of the Starlogs and Omni magazines on PDF.
And all of those authors, that, the ones that haven't drank themselves to death are still out there.
On Absinthe.
On Absinthe, right? I shouldn't say that. That was mean. That was mean.
We're not cutting nothing out of this. This is raw, uncut, and...
But that whole fandom, that whole weird magazine fandom scene sort of dried up almost. Yeah.
Starlog, Omni, Heavy Metal, Fangoria was like the magazine.
Heavy Metal was the shit, man. I loved Heavy Metal magazine.
Yep. Mobius, Art, and all of that shit. The Heavy Metal and the Omni for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great, man. I remember one Christmas I wanted like the special Starlog books about weapons in the back of a Starlog magazine. You know what I mean? Like, the ultimate nerd out. Like, I've got the subscription to Starlog, but I need this special book about sci-fi weapons. I might need to build one. It's like 11 years old, 10, 11.
That's all for it. Remember all the stuff in the back of Popular Science or Popular Mechanics? Sorry.
I never got into that till later, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I got old enough to really start to distinguish, because, man, I was watching, like, Space 1999, like when I was in second grade.
Okay.
Like I'd been into it from that point, but then when I got old enough to distinguish realism from fantasy, that's when I really got into like Popular Mechanics, Scientific American, Astronomy Magazine. I really got into that part of it. I went through this weird phase where I was like into UFO magazines and lore, before actually transitioning to science. That kind of thing.
It's funny. This hit me while we were talking about this, that there's a level of broke. There's a level of broke, Appalachian broke. You know what? Here's one of the examples of that level of broke. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the store, like a Kmart or something like that, seeing toys on the shelves for television shows that you've never seen. You don't even know what these are associated with. You don't know what it is, where it comes from.
Why you would want it over any other
And Space
item.
1999 was one of those things that I saw toys for, but to this day I've never seen a full episode of it.
Oh my God, I've seen all the episodes. I got them all. Even as a kid, I had the great big giant toy that was the Eagle lander with the guys.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Like I do remember it was like they had like those modular weird, like it looked like a bunch of bowling balls kind of. That was their toys. But is that what you're talking about?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it was a spaceship.
It was a spaceship,
yeah. It was a, I think it was a weird movie or TV show, but I still like watching it sometimes because it really gives me a 70s feel, 70s vibe.
I have a hard time going back, especially with like childhood cartoons. Like Battle of the Planets G-Force.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so stoked when I think I found it on one of the services. I don't know what, Hulu, Netflix, whatever it was. I was like, man, I can't wait to go watch this shit.
Yeah.
And I put that stuff on, and I couldn't even get through like the first 5 minutes. I was like, nope.
I had the exact same experience with that exact same show. I downloaded all of Battle of the Planets, and I watched most of, if not all of, the first episode, and I was done.
That was
Did
it.
The same thing with Thundar the Barbarian.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those. Vaguely remember those.
Yeah, and there's a weird one that nobody seems to much remember called Space Giants.
Yeah.
That I got. Actually, that was something I watched a few episodes of, weirdly enough, though, and it's probably the most B-rated of all of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I grew up, though, watching, weirdly enough, though, things like The Three Stooges, and what do they call it? Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah. I was down
Lost in Space. I really liked Lost in, even the black and white Lost in Spaces. And when I see them today, they hold up. The nostalgia for that holds up.
That's good.
You know?
I never watched Lost in Space, but I liked In Search of.
Yeah, with Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah.
Those things gave me fucking nightmares.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him for what it was, not just because he was in it, but yeah, that's the weird shit that they would talk about.
Holy crap! It got to a point I think my mother wouldn't let me watch them anymore because of the shit they would talk about. I would lose my shit at night. Like, I have a very vivid imagination, so which worked fantastically on shadows and shit on the walls after when it's pitch dark and you just got done watching In Search of.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott's seminal future noir Blade Runner turns 35 this year. Well, the theatrical cut of the film does, and that's kind of the point of this article. Blade Runner is actually celebrating 3 anniversaries in 2017. The director's cut reaching 25 and widely acclaimed final cut turning 10. To celebrate this triple bill of milestones, we're going to break down just why these different cuts exist, what drove Scott to keep exploring his sci-fi masterpiece, and what exactly the often pretty small differences are between each of the versions.
There's also a work print that is going around on the interwebs, and I have that too.
No, you don't have that. That would be illegal. You don't have that.
I got every goddamn bit of it.
No Shitcast would like to remind the listeners that we in no way endorse criminal activity.
I don't.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yeah, listeners. Just listeners.
This is a big deal, though, man. I mean, this film.
Yeah.
This film was. Dude. When
I wrote a paper on it in college.
That's right, you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
I actually didn't remember that, so this is not a petty setup. I actually didn't remember that, but I think you told me that.
Yeah. The professor really liked it, and it was about it being a film noir.
Yeah,
it covered every aspect of how that genre is defined.
It's the perfect film.
Yeah. The only thing was it was in color. That's the only difference. That's the only place it deviated from every other aspect of what defines that genre. So, my argument in the paper was that it was film noir, and it was that exact same classic approach and theme, just done in a futuristic setting with color.
I'm not going to go through that. There was a theatrical cut. There's a director's cut. There's a final cut, which is my favorite. And I'm not going to go through all the different versions of this.
What are the basic differences?
Well, that's kind of what they're wanting to talk about, okay, in here and go into great detail. The 3 main differences in the director's cut version of the film, most instantly noticeable is the removal of the voiceover, which completely changes the film's pacing and structure.
And the Unicorn Dream, right?
That's also in the director's cut, I think, yeah. It's most visceral to the experience of watching the movie. The director's cut also included nude footage, which would reignite one of the biggest conversations in film fandom. Is Ford's Neo Gumshoe Deckard actually a replicant, which he is? That's the way I see it. The addition of a few seconds of footage depicting a unicorn that turns the theatrical cut's simple narrative on its head.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original cut didn't have those, so this calls into question, like, was he even human while he was running around gunning down replicants?
And the final cut was longer than all the others, right?
Yeah, it keeps all the biggest changes of the director's cut and expanding on the significance of the unicorns. The final cut used the full restored footage, which couldn't be used in the director's cut due to lack of film quality. Building in the now famous unicorn dream sequence, the full version of which had never been seen in any of the other cuts. This sequence confirmed to many that Deckard was in fact a replicant.
They were all in that print that floats around out there, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of where they restored footage from was from that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And it's actually a little longer than the final cut.
This was one of those films that, and I'm sure most of the people, if they're listening to this show, have watched this at some point or versions of it. I turned my kids onto it. My boy loves it, like loves it. He's like an Adam Savage builder kind of thing. He likes to build to the point where he was like trying to figure out how to do the pistol. Like Adam Savage did a copy of that Deckard's pistol that he uses in the movie, and stuff like, you know, the different props and things they use. But this had an enormous influence on many movies after that, especially for showing like that post-apocalyptic futurist kind of vision.
Yeah, the dystopian situation. Yeah, in my paper I compared that to how all the film noirs took place like during or right after the war, like World War II and stuff, and how there was this sort of you know...
Yeah, they were always slapping women around in them fucking movies, weren't they?
Well, yeah, they were. And I guess that was just how things were back then. I don't believe there's much of that happening.
It's a little shocking when you think about in the context of modern interpretation of what's acceptable in a civil society.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, it used to be really bad, I guess. I don't know, man. Like, I wondered about that one time, and I know that in the same time period that there was a lot of women slapping on TV, there was a lot of doctors prescribing diazepam as marital aids to women of that era and stuff.
Right.
And it always made me wonder, like, you know, is that why they got away with it? Like, were they just a little more doped up on diazepam or something like that? You know, there was a lot of that going around in the 50s.
Well, the Quaalude.
That happened later, but yeah, I mean,
same kind of idea.
And
take one of these and go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, was the point of the Quaalude. But if you make yourself stay awake,
right? Yeah, and, you
then
know,
the magic starts. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know where we went down that road.
I don't know. That's crazy stuff, man. That's crazy.
But this, 35 years, and this is a movie that no matter how many times I watch it, never get bored with it. No matter, and I'm a fan. I can watch any version of it and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My favorite is the final cut. I just like that version of it the best. And there's some other stuff too that they didn't point out in this article where they went in and recreated like the opening sequence with modern and put displays and the spinners, which are the police cars. They call them spinners. Which is better than
that print and stuff. That's why in the end result, that final cut is, in my opinion, the best.
It's gorgeous. I mean, the whole movie is just so, you know, they enhanced those noir aspects with the contrast settings or choices that they made when they remastered it and things too. I'm telling you, it's razor sharp. It's beautiful, even more so than, and that's between the music and the artistry of how every scene was filmed and everything. It really captivated me.
35 years?
35. Yeah. Can you believe that? So was Harrison Ford in that, like 13?
Yeah, he should. Man, and you know, Ridley Scott, he's just a excellent director. I don't think he's ever done anything that I haven't really at least liked, if not really, really liked.
Right.
I mean, I really liked Alien. I really liked Gladiator. And
the guy doesn't know how to make a bad movie, right?
Even the ones I didn't care much for, I watched them and it was not bad, you know. He used Orlando Bloom. That's against him, but okay, you know, everything was good.
other than that,
you know, forecasting, but that's all right.
This thing was one of them that, you know, there wasn't like it It was post Star Wars, but it didn't have that. Was it post Empire Strikes Back? It's like 1982.
Yeah,
somewhere around that same time.
yeah.
But it kind of came out in the theaters and sort of came and went. It never got that sort of. There was no toys. There was no, and probably because it was so dark and violent.
Yeah.
It was not. It was like a sci-fi fantasy for older people. But so was Alien. But Alien, there was toys.
Well, yeah, but that's because
weirdly enough, right?
That's because horror is acceptable at all ages. I mean, for the most part, right? I mean, young and old can get into a horror story, like even kids. Space and horror. I don't know, man. They made toys. This is true.
You know what I'm saying? It was weird.
Maybe they were toys for older people.
Well, I got my toys now. I got that box set that looks like a briefcase. And then you open the void comp, which is that lie detector that they give the replicants.
Yeah.
I have a box set that comes in that briefcase.
I've seen it. Yeah,
it's really cool. It's got the little police car in it, and the unicorn that the
origami stuff. Yeah, yeah, that is pretty. I remember that's because we sat down and we watched that. We watched the final cut. Yeah, I remember reading about that in Starlog, and they had like the graphic design artist that had drawn that void comp machine. And a few other of the things and stuff, and those were amazing too.
Yep.
Just the realism that they put into all those props like that.
Oh, right, yeah.
And really, I like it when there's props like that that's used in a show that doesn't have a bunch of description to it. Like when you watch Star Trek, it's like, the matter-antimatter must be on a 1-to-1 ratio, and the containment field will go down where it's going to be about. It's like they're always talking about their technology and explaining their technology. But I like it when I watch a movie that uses such technology, but they don't really ever talk about it, refer to it. It gives you the impression it's just like...
It's just part of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is more realistic.
Yeah, they shouldn't point out the sexy vernacular they've created for their... right, you should just accept it and let the audience get it by reference.
Yeah, you didn't hear like, okay, John, now we're going to do the Void Comp machine, which was created by Dr. Comp, who worked for Void Corp, who, distributed these devices. You know what I mean? Like
okay, that was weird. Yeah. As you know, Sonny. Yeah, the Top Gun was known for doing that too. Really? In that, that's why it was so approachable by people that were in the Navy and in the military. Although don't get me wrong, it's full of all kinds of, what do they call those when something's
inconsistencies?
Yeah, well, I thought there was a specific name for them in movies, but whatever. Yes, inconsistencies. That when you've worked on those type of aircraft, you're like, well, that's all bullshit. But the movie itself, as sort of a machismo kind of feel good movie, still definitely holds up, and they're making another one actually currently. Right. All my F-14 groups that I'm a part of have been raving recently about how they've seen the the F-14 that they actually used to film scenes for the new movie. So it's an airframe. I don't think it has the wings on it for some reason, but it's an cockpit airframe.
Yeah.
But so I could be wrong, but I've seen pictures of it, like they were moving it, and people were able to get pictures next to it and stuff after they used it to film some scenes with Tom Cruise. So it's gonna be interesting.
So you can get, when people are giving out dialogue like that, it's possible to do it well, but it's really hard. And I think the best example I've ever seen of that was in the movie Terminator, James Cameron directing.
Okay.
The original Terminator, when Kyle, I believe that's the name of the character, has come back from the future to intercept the T1 or whatever. And they're being chased by him, and they're having that gunshot while he's chasing them. Through that whole chase scene, he's explaining to her that he's come from the future and why he's come back and why he needs to save her, right? And then they get it all in one little bit of dialogue through a chase scene, so you never really feel like you had to sit and watch it.
And it was contrived in any way, kind of thing.
Just like, he needs to get this information to her. It was probably the best, here's what's going on, audience dialogue I'd ever heard in a movie that didn't make me feel like it was just being force-fed to me,
That's a good thing. I mean, that lets the sort of the viewer experience that, in real time instead of it having like, okay, wait, stop everything. Now we're going to put this history lesson in here.
Right.
All right, start. It's like a record scratch.
So, Jordy, what do you know about the planet?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Give me the status report, Jordy LaForge.
Right. That's very contrived.
But this movie it holds up. There's no doubt that any version of it you watch is entertaining. Even the stuff that went back to the original special effects was groundbreaking in the way it was filmed, how beautiful, and but it definitely presents a future that's very bleak and sort of dark, where there's an undertone that everybody's sort of trying to get off the planet.
Yeah, everybody's doing the colonization thing.
Mars colonies.
Looks really trashy.
Yep. Yeah,
looks very urbanized, over-urbanized.
When you look at the wiki page, it talks about how the inspiration for some of these scenes was, downtown Tokyo street at its worst. Mm-hmm. And that was the set that they sort of shot for. But you were talking about the guy from Heavy Metal. There were influences of the art. One of the big artists from
Mobius.
Mobius was some of his artwork was definitely heavily referenced. And it really kind of stitches together this weird. Now, what's funny about it was all supposed to go down in 2019. That whole movie takes place in Los Angeles in 2019.
Yeah, we've been really far off in our fantasizing about what's going to happen in the future.
I would say
for the most part,
we've been ambitious, optimistic.
No flying cars in the year 2000.
No, the big date from Back to the Future is kind of come and went, right? And we don't have hoverboards.
Right, yeah.
There's no anti-gravity still.
Yep.
Bums me out.
We don't have Skynet.
I always ask the Electric Universe guys, like when I had Gareth on recently, because I want to know. It's like, okay, so if this becomes like a fundamental law of physics, like if we say, okay, this is a law, like we understand, we don't necessarily understand where it comes from per se, but we understand that it's repeatable and all these things. Do I get like hover cars and shit? Like, what do I get? Unfortunately, it looks like the answer is no.
Yeah. You only get what somebody's willing to produce and sell, I guess.
Bob Lazar.
Yes.
On Joe Rogan. Talk to me. Do you know anything about Bob Lazar?
Yes. I know all kinds of things about Bob Lazar.
Oh, you've got to spill the beans, man. I just did he was just on Joe Rogan, and he's got a special on Netflix that just came out.
I mean, I know all about him, the capacity of that. At least for a decade, I've seen him on various documentaries. Right. He was a worker at what we colloquially call Area 51.
Yeah, like S4 or something like that. Area 51, right?
Yeah.
In a specific section of Area 51 as well.
And his big claim is that, we have aliens there and alien technology, and that he worked on some of that stuff and had first contact with that sort of thing and stuff, and that's what he's been saying for a while. And there was another guy, I believe, originally that lived near him, an older dude that also was in agreement with what he said, but I don't know if that guy's still alive. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I've been seeing him on documentaries for a really long time, and a lot of the documentaries were like really cheap ones at first.
Right.
But he's really climbing his way to success now if he's got a TV show and he's hitting the Joe Rogan podcast.
Well, there is a documentary and there is the Joe Rogan podcast, and from what I've heard Rogan saying is like that's it. Like he's done. He wanted to get a chance to put this information out again in the most precise and concise way that he could, that he knew, because he claims he doesn't. Huh? He claims he doesn't know everything. The way that they had them set up was very compartmentalized.
Sure.
And apparently, he's a real egghead and he doesn't like people. So people keep showing up, who've seen UFOs or have had experiences or whatever. And they keep showing up like he needs validation. And he's like, I don't want your validation, like leave me alone.
Do you really think he'll stop? He's been doing this for over a decade, making appearances on things.
I don't know, man. The whole thing, that's what I said. The whole thing kind of geeks me out. It really does, because some of the stuff he's talked about, like this element 115 that now appears on the periodic table of elements now, he was talking about back when nobody thought it existed. And it's the same with these hand scanners and things that he was talking about that he used to get in and out of these secure areas. These are all things that were used to sort of disprove his story. Now, when you go back and you do look at a lot of the stuff he said, yeah, he says a lot of it, okay, but he says the same thing over and over. There's a lot of consistency to what this guy says. And those actual pen hand scanners, I've seen at factories that I worked at 10 years ago. So I know that I've seen them. And then there's pictures of them and stuff that you put your hand down and it like measures the bone length on your hand. I actually used to have a picture of it. But like all of this stuff, these things have happened now since he first started telling his story. So what I'm saying is if he's making this all up, and it's very possible that he is, it is a super elaborate sort of fabrication. That just saying how the security devices, so this guy's got familiarity with this shit, and just talking about the security devices could have gotten him in big trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's done, but he's done something at a very highly secure level. I'll say that, but I don't know what he's actually done. No one really knows until someone, pulls this thing out of a shed somewhere and they go, oh yeah, there it is.
When's this documentary going to be on?
No, it's on
Currently?
it's on Netflix now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob Lazar. And then he was on, and then like I said, he was on the Joe Rogan podcast too. So you can
Did
go
you
check that
listen to
out. I watched that, yeah, for
What'd
sure.
you think?
Well, here's kind of what went down with me when he first comes on to Rogan. Because I don't really follow this. I like conspiracy theories, and I love UFO theory and paranormal. I love all of it. Okay, I'm a huge fan, but it's not something that I follow and keep up on. Kind of every now and then a story pops up, and I'm like, oh, what's this? And so when he showed up on the Joe Rogan podcast, I really didn't quite understand or know who he was at all, other than what the description said. Oh, something about UFOs. And there's been a lot of shit going on with like the Navy and different things about UFOs.
That we talked about on
the show. So, and on the Rogan podcast, he talks about having spoken with that naval aviator that, saw that shit and is reporting it. One of many, apparently. There's like 7 of them now that are on the record or in public about it. But so I started watching the podcast and I was like, fuck, this dude's interesting. And then they kept talking about this Netflix documentary. So I stopped the podcast and then I went and watched the documentary to see if I wanted to be invested in this thing for another, whatever the interview was, like over 2 hours, I think. So it was one of those things. I was like, well, let me cut to the chase. I'll just go check this documentary out, and if this thing is like, what the fuck, then I don't have to finish either of them and I can kind of move on.
Yeah.
So I watched the whole documentary and then went back and finished the podcast because he compels me in a way that a lot of these people don't. And look, there's no doubt in my mind that he's a super intelligent guy. He's got a tremendous vocabulary. Okay, you follow me? And he runs like a scientific supply company that supplies things specifically into like the nuclear research and these kinds of industries and for education and stuff. So he kind of knows what in the hell he's doing, but there's no record of him ever being a physicist. There's no record of him ever working at Los Alamos. But there's a phone directory with his name in it from Los Alamos. And he can take you there and literally, he does this, I guess he did a documentary, or as part of that documentary, they went to Los Alamos and he just walked people around. There's a newspaper article that has him on the front page because he put a jet engine in his Honda, which he says is why he was ultimately recruited for this program. And there's a newspaper article that shows a picture of him on the front page of a newspaper from a city near where Los Alamos Labs is. And with him having built this jet car. And it says in the article, Bob Lazar, who works at Los Alamos Laboratories. But they say he never worked there. So there's like been this weird attempt to like erase this guy. I think he went to college. He went to MIT. He said he went to MIT, but MIT has no record of him. So there's some weird shit going on here where it looks like someone tried to like partially delete his credibility at the very least, but he's got the chops. He seems to, so when he speaks about,
what if he was an autodactyl and just making it up?
he could absolutely be, man. And I'm saying that, and I can't wait to be like, wow, that is the coolest. Because to me, no matter, there's no losing here.
Yeah, no, I
there's no
agree.
losing.
Yeah,
it's what he's saying is compelling as shit.
Yeah.
Okay, number one, so win. And if it turns out to be an entire thing, it turns out to be some wild ass elaborate hoax, or like you said, the guy's got he's touched somehow, and this is just part of his, he's got some sort of weird, super genius abilities, but he's a complete lunatic. I'll take that too. Right? So I don't see, there's no way to lose here. But the things he talks about and the things that he's been consistent with, like I said, at least makes me believe that he has been around a very highly technical type devices, subjects where a lot of engineering and math and things are going on. I've worked like around metallurgists from MIT actually and places. And that's the thing that jumped out at me is when you are around these people, a lot of these people, when you watch them trying to solve a problem, like a big one, they very rapidly descend, all these different engineers and people all rapidly sort of descend into this common vernacular where they all start speaking about physics in terms that everybody in the room understands. Like they'll descend out of their common specific subject matter vernacular, and it'll start breaking down into common physics terms and things. I've watched this happen, like fixing a very one of a kind, very large hydraulic press. I mean, like the biggest in North America, with some issues, and watched a room full of scientists and engineers come together to figure out how to fix it. And it was like, I was like, wow, this is bizarre. Like they're all speaking the same language that if someone wasn't at least technically inclined wouldn't understand. Mm-hmm. But to watch it descend into this common vernacular across all of these people talking to each other was bizarre. But okay, so case in point, when I listen to him talk, I definitely get the sense that this guy has at least been exposed to this kind of subject matter at a very high level. Now, you're right. I mean, anybody can go to a library, and if you have the aptitude, technically you can pretty much teach yourself anything.
Yeah.
Okay. I 100% agree with that. But then when you start throwing in all these other pieces about things that he talked about that never existed, but it's just now starting to come out that exists, it gives his story a weird sort of credibility that you don't often find in other stories of this type, right?
I suppose. I don't know. I'm always skeptic about things. I mean...
Oh, me too. I don't know that this wasn't some elaborate thing set up by the government that doesn't even exist, but it was made to be so convincing that people would leak it to the public. There's a whole conspiracy along those lines too. Like it's anti... whatever, the government is putting this hysteria out there, but it doesn't actually exist. They're just pretending it does. They're the ones that's perpetrating it. You follow what I mean?
Yeah,
to create paranoia and
yeah. A lot of people talk about futurism, I mean, in 1995, I was telling people that there would be a point where you'd be able to take a picture of a plant that you were passing by, and you'd be able to access the internet and figure out what that plant was, right? And you can do that now. I just downloaded the app 2 days ago.
Right, there's an app.
Yeah, there's an app for it now. And I was talking about that in 95 because I was talking about digital camera technology and wireless technology and the internet. I was also talking about how at some point you're going to be able to interface just like you can with your phone now with Siri, to ask it to play whatever is on iTunes music banks, right? Whatever. You should be able to do that in your car in the near future, right? You should be able to just tell your radio what playlist you want to hear. And
have you ever been to Epcot Center?
No.
Okay, so you get the premise of Epcot Center, right? You understand
about the future?
Yeah, the ball, that big golf ball looking fucking thing, is actually a ride.
Okay.
It's not like a ride like the Matterhorn or something, or whatever, where it's a thrill ride. It's like this weird continuous gantry train system that has trains on it, and it runs along a rail path that goes up and around and in this ball and back down, and sort of get off, and the next group gets on, and it just continues kind of working this way. But through it, it's supposed to take you through. When it was built, it was taking through like a vision of the technology of tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got sponsors, right? Like big companies like Siemens and GE and these places sponsor Epcot Center kind of thing. And they get their name like on lasers on the side of the wall and shit. But so I'm down there doing, we're working industrial automation, right? So we build this stuff. Like tech, automation systems. We get on this thing. We're like, hey, man, of course, we're in Epcot Center. And the rule was you had to stop and get a beer in every country on your way around. So we were polluted. Like, let's go do Epcot. Let's go do the ball. So we do this thing, and it was awful, man. It was like having a bunch of drunk sailors because, first of all, the technology that they're talking about in the ride is already been surpassed.
Yeah.
And what we already, like, we're all like looking at our cell phones, looking at the technology in this thing. There will be fiber networks connecting civilizations together. It's like, bitch, we use it to connect the dryer to the chopper, Like, this is nothing new or, futuristic. So it horrendously needs to be updated. It's like ghetto technology, man. I mean, it's so bad. It's awful. Sorry, Disney. I got to shit on. Maybe they've updated it. I don't know. But the last time I was in it was only, I don't know. It was probably like 10 years ago now that I think about it. But it was awful.
Well, I was just thinking if Bob Lazar knew all this stuff and he was really intelligent and really smart, and if he was self-educated, he'd probably have a much better grasp of what the future was going to bring in certain technological areas. And he may have in fact worked in some capacity as an adjunct capacity to the military or something, maybe. And so maybe he has been there, maybe he has seen things and stuff.
Right.
But maybe he's never actually worked there. Maybe he never actually went to MIT. Maybe that's
and the question then would be, because he's had like multiple FBI raids and all kinds of different stuff. Like he was involved somehow in an illegal brothel as well. I mean, it's all out there about this guy. And he, the problem is to what end? So what would be the point of all of this? Because it definitely has not made his life easier or necessarily even better in any way. And he's not making any money off of it.
What kind of proof is there that he's been raided all these times and involved in the brothel? I mean, like,
there is, man. There's records and there's, that while they were filming the documentary, his location, his business got raided again. I think it was by the FBI. There was multiple federal agencies there. They raided it again. They said they were looking for documents on one of his customers. So, but they came in and like with full like investigation teams. And
why
stuff.
would they keep doing it, man? Like,
I don't know.
The couple of look, I know when Larry Wayne Harris, who lives here in town, he lived like on the next street over from where I lived. When the FBI came and raided his house, they did it one time. I mean, they had news people out and choppers flying over, and the FBI was there, the police was there, but they just did it once. Like, I don't know what the reason would be for the FBI to keep showing up. It doesn't make any sense. It sounds to me like it's staged, like they're actually like he's paying people to do it, or the company that's
I get all of that. Okay, but anytime he does anything that he makes money off of, he gives the money to a local high school science program or something like that. So he won't take any of the money from anything. Even I guess I think even from the documentary, I don't think he's taken any of the money. So that's what I'm saying. This is a weird thing.
Yeah.
This is either some weird messianic complex kind of bizarre.
But to what
thing,
end?
But that's my point, right?
Steve,
to what end?
You remember earlier today I was referencing Steve Jackson Games and the card game Illuminati? Well, early on they were doing a supplement about cyber technology for one of their role-playing games, and they had like a message board. It was like in the days of the really early internet before the 2.0 internet,
Right.
and MTL stuff, and
HTML.
yeah, yeah, that kind of stuff, right? Like just bulletin board stuff. And I guess they got raided by either the CIA or the FBI. I think it was the CIA raided them because they had intercepted their discussions about this cyber technology.
Right.
And they thought it was real.
Right.
But they raided it one time and they figured it out and they left.
That was
right?
a guest. Someone was a guest on our show talked about that from from those days of the FBI, the big FBI raid.
Yeah.
But it was one of the authors or somebody that worked for TSR or something was talking about that.
Steve Jack. Yeah.
That goes way back, dude.
Yeah,
Jeez, that's like
Michael Dobson.
That's like 70 some podcasts ago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So I mean, why would they do that? Like, why would the government continue to show up? Because they would just take his shit if they wanted to, like they do anybody's. Like it looks so fake and so contrived that they would keep showing up. I've never seen an example of that other than in these weird cases.
I'll say this, that it's had me very contemplative. It's because generally this stuff I just laugh about and go to sleep at night. No problem. But watch it.
Yeah,
okay?
I will. I
just watch
will.
it. All right. Come to the dark side.
I never end up.
You must believe in aliens, Eric.
Mustn't I?
You should. Come to the dark side, Eric.
No,
it's very compelling. Like I said, when you listen to this guy talk and watch him on the Rogan podcast too, because that's our old thing, right? You and I talk about this all the time. That when you interview somebody, you know, you got to get past some sort of. There's a magic time.
Yeah.
That once you get past that time, all pretense with people sort of disappears.
Yeah.
And you get to have these really great, honest conversations.
Yeah, because you can only not be yourself for about 30 minutes or
so
and
long.
then you just kind of relax and start talking and forget.
Yep. So in a documentary, which is heavily edited, you can catch people in those first 10, 15, 30 minute and edit it together and get a very, consistent view of someone that's projecting a character.
Mm-hmm.
But when you sit down on a podcast for 2+ hours, drinking the whole time, by the way, with someone asking you questions and talking you through subjects, you would think things would, at some point, would start to fall away. Now, maybe this guy has a character that he portrays, and he can do Hamlet, like he's got a character.
Been consistent for at least as long as I've been seeing him, which has been a long time.
And that's freaky, man. Like his story really hasn't morphed any. He hasn't morphed his story to try to stay relevant even in that community. And in that community, he doesn't go around to the cons and he hasn't been on Ancient Aliens, although I think he's going to be. No, they're going to talk about him, but I don't think he's on the show.
Right, because you said he was supposed to be stopping after.
Right. Yeah. So
I don't think he will, but.
Well, I guess it all depends on what happens next.
If he's doing this all for some kind of money we don't know he's getting or notoriety, he's going to probably keep doing it.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's like the Fermi paradox, right? For all the inconsistencies, for all the probabilities, for everything that he is, we still haven't got nothing.
Yeah, we still have no answer.
Yeah, nothing. I mean,
yeah, I find his story extremely compelling.
Yeah,
I'm not sitting here saying I believe it. And like I said, I can't wait to find out how. Like I'm going to win either way.
Yeah,
because it's so rich, this kind of character, if that's what it is that he's created. But nonetheless, it is compelling as shit and definitely worth looking at.
Would you want to win the other way?
Which way?
The other way being, you said either way, it's a win-win, right? This guy's nuts. And he's making all this up. That's an interesting angle to you, and you will be okay with that. But if you win the other way, that means he's telling the truth.
Oh, for sure.
And somehow that truth comes out.
Right.
Okay. Would you want to win in that way? Like, would you really want him to be telling the truth, and would you want that to come out? And would it be winning?
And now you understand why his story has had me up thinking at night.
Right.
Because to accept the shit that he's talking about, the ability to cancel gravity alone is earth-shattering ramifications by itself.
Yeah.
Okay? There is... And so when you think about him being right, means you have to sort of contemplate the point of fucking everything.
Yeah.
Okay? Everything. And that's the messed up part, right? So do I want that to be the case? Do I want to be able to fucking sleep at night?
And would it be a win? Like, I don't know.
It would be it would be what it is. It would be earth-shattering. It would be
because it's
paradigm-shifting, earth-shattering thing.
Not only does it mean the alien civilization just more technologically advanced than our own,
but I don't know that we know that.
But it also would mean that the government is really super deep in a worldwide conspiracy to hide it from us.
And there again, that's like, how does that happen? Because he even said in his interviews that he worked with Russians.
Yeah, see, I don't know, man.
So I get it. And it's always about, well, how do you shut the pencil pushers up, right? There's all these huge conspiracies. But let me tell you what, these organizations from Groom Lake in Area 51, where they built and tested the SR-71, where they built and tested the F-117 stealth fighter, the B-2 stealth bomber.
Yep.
All of these things have been done and have been rolled out at fucking air shows at some point. Like, ta-da, here's what we got. And everybody went, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't tell me that a government entity, especially like a defense contractor, because that's the other thing he claims is that all of this technology is in the hands of a private company. It's not, the government actually doesn't possess it. And there's this memo that came out recently called like the Wilson memo. It's about this Admiral Wilson. And I've learned all of this from the documentary and the podcast, okay? Where it was a conversation about being able to see this alien technology and being denied, even though this admiral was like, well, I have jurisdiction over this program. There's no way you can deny it. And they did deny him access, and it was upheld. So this Admiral Wilson didn't get any kind of clarity other than there was this program that he wasn't allowed to see that was purported to be this alien technology. See, the reason I struggle with this being some kind of I don't know, man. This could be a Nazi Germany science experiment. And I'm really reaching here, okay? We don't know who built. He says there's 9 of them. If there's 9 of these things, did they all come from and he said that the guy he worked with told him it came from an archaeological dig. And that his suspicion, Bob Lazar said his suspicion, although he had no proof, because the way they compartmentalized these guys they were allowed to kind of see and talk to each other, but they weren't allowed to. You had your buddy that you worked with, your teammate, and that was the only person you were allowed to discuss the details of what you were doing. However, when they were running other tests, that someone made a decision that would be advantageous for these multiple groups to see this test. So there were times where he said he actually got to see this craft fly and move around and do things. There's a part of it that was where it supposedly created these coronas and stuff underneath the craft until it got above a certain height, and then that went away. Which I can't wait to find. Hopefully, like Sherfu and Neil Thompson and those guys have watched this too, because I wonder if there's an angle with Electric Universe guys on this.
So he implied that they found ancient alien artifacts.
He implied that these were they were definitely foreign. They were spacecraft. It was his impression that they were otherworldly, that they were very, very old, and that it did indicate that there was alien species. However, he said what you would consider to be chairs in the spacecraft where someone would sit were very small. Like he said, they were like half, for someone to be like half his height, and the craft itself was very small. Like he's like, when I was in the center of it, the tallest part, you still had to duck and to get out, and he's like, there was no cables. All of the technology works without being connected to each other. They just have to be in proximity. He went through, because his job, he said, was to sort of discern the propulsion mechanisms for it. So he goes through and I don't want to, just recite this thing, but he goes through in very specific detail how it uses a triangulated thrusting system and why it does it this way and which way it actually flies and and why it has to fly that way. And he said that they were able to derive before he arrived on the team that it ran on this element 115, which was some sort of synthesized, solidified version, and that there's a very specific way that this has to be made and cut to fuel the system. But it does use a consumable fuel. But it doesn't seem to actually violate but it does violate other laws of thermodynamics and other laws of physics. So, but it does need a fuel source. But it seems to be extremely powerful. And his big bitch, he says, the whole rub that he has with the whole thing is that because of the way that they keep everybody that works on this project trying to backwards engineer these 9 spacecraft or whatever they are, is that they keep everybody so compartmentalized that nobody's really allowed to share data or research ideas or anything to cross-pollinate. Like he wasn't allowed to talk to the metallurgist, but he was an energy physicist. So he's studying the propulsion system, but he can't talk to a metallurgist about what it's made of. You can ask, and then that goes into a box, and then you might or might not get an answer. There's these kinds of ways, and he feels that has significantly retarded the ability to actually figure out how this stuff works and to gain some sort of insight into what it is and how it works, is the way that they got it so wrapped up in high security that it's going to take, they're never going to really figure it out. And he wants it more out in the open so that it can be honestly researched and explored in a way that could help, because he thinks that the technology obviously would be mankind altering. So it's all altruism if you listen to him.
Yeah. Well.
Okay. It's all about, humanity and mankind, and he doesn't make any money at it. So
wonder if we could subpoena his tax records.
Well, I don't know that he wouldn't just turn him over necessarily. Well, that's kind of the thing. He just keeps saying, I got nothing to hide. Every time you investigate me, I've already told you the truth. All they keep finding out is that what I've already told you is the truth. So that's kind of the attitude he has at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if anybody, I don't know if he's willing to even go that far. I have no idea. I just know that it creeped me the fuck out. There's like a reporter, man, that started following him way back in the day that's still following him today. This one reporter from a news station in Arizona, and I'm like, this dude ain't, he's the plaid sport coat kind of guy, All right, brother, we've been at this about an hour and 15 minutes, man. You want to start wrapping up here?
Yeah, I better do that.
Well, it was good having you on the show, bud. I appreciate you coming in to talk.
I enjoyed it.
Did we miss anything?
Nope. Got to watch some Bob Lazar stuff.
Yeah, you do.
We talk again.
I was going to send you the videos, but you're so backed up having all the different shit that people were asking you to watch.
Yeah, but I'll watch these because I have an interest in it a lot too.
Oh, yeah. Please pick it apart for me. Maybe we come back on after you watch it. We'll talk about it again. Yeah. Let me know when you watch them because I'll watch them again.
Okay.
That way it's kind of fresh.
And you said it was on Netflix, right?
It's on Netflix, yeah. Just look up, I think, if you look up Bob Lazar.
It's going to be a busy week for me. I'm doing house sitting. I'm going to have my son. And
it's going to be a fun week.
Going on.
Well, both of you should sit down and watch this and then watch the Rogan podcast, man. And then ask him what the hell he thinks.
Yeah, I might do that.
All right, man, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Check us out at www.noshitcast.com. That's KNOWSHITCAST.com. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. And like I said, we'll give you a shout out, which we did today.
Yeah.
Make sure you give us a rating on iTunes, etc. If you like what we do, please share us. It would be greatly appreciated. And we will catch you all next time. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Hello.